cancel culture. Father Ted creator Graham Linehan has had not one but two of his shows cancelled at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. That's because of his views on transgender issues. He says he turned to comedy after his gender-critical views saw him struggling to find any writing work, but now venues are cancelling his shows as they don't align with their views. Joining me now is comedian and GB News presenter Leo Kearse, and we also have co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani. Leo, is this proof that cancel culture does exist? It's not a right-wing myth?
Yeah, of course it exists. It doesn't just exist. It existed twice in 1 week to the same person. One venue cancelled, then the next venue cancelled. And I mean, the concern here is that, there's a big backlash, a big outrage over the cancellation. And then the venue is possibly going to be subject to legal challenges because under the Equality Act, gender critical beliefs are protected. You're allowed to think that, if your uncle's, got a vagina, he's your aunt. But what's going to happen is these venues are just going to push the cancellation further up the chain. So they're going to cancel people before they've even been booked. And that's what happened to me this year. My tour promoter couldn't find enough theatres to slot my show into because they said, no, this guy's problematic. So we're going to see a complete stultifying of comedy, and it's going to become incredibly dull and worthy, even worse than it is now.
Yeah, I mean, Aaron, some people say, and you hear this quite a lot, oh, this venue has every right to decide who performs there. Are you relaxed about this?
Well, I mean, that's partially true. And I think it's important to say that there are some things that shouldn't be platformed in somewhere like a comedy club. Somebody, for instance, who is advocating paedophilia. I think most sensible people would say, yeah, that probably shouldn't be something which is openly advocated. So there are thresholds. The question is...
Wait. Hold up a moment. What comedians are advocating paedophilia?
If you let me finish, you might agree. Obviously, the question is, has that threshold been met here? I think clearly this is in no way equivocal to pedophilia. But I think the idea that people can say anything they like anywhere, I would push back gently against that. There's an interesting parallel here between this and the debanking thing with Farage. So for me, the big issue with Farage wasn't necessarily that NatWest wouldn't give him a business account, although that's bad. I disagree with it. It was the fact that I think 8 or 9 other banks also wouldn't provide those same services. And as Leo said, the problem isn't necessarily 1 or 2 places. In the abstract, yes, it is their right to say who they wish and don't wish to give a platform to. But if that percolates through to a systemic norm where a professional can't earn a living anywhere, then that's a categorically different kind of thing. And it's definitely something we should be vigilant about and is not really healthy in a democratic free society.
OK, Leo, you were shaking your head and jumping in there. What were you going to say?
Well, I actually ended up agreeing with him. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a fallacious point to say that, there are views that shouldn't be platformed in comedy clubs or whatever, because who gets to decide? And we've already got laws against hate speech, against incitement to violence, against incitement to crime, such as paedophilia. So, somebody saying that kind of thing wouldn't be allowed. Not that anybody would say it. And that's the thing. Comedy's performed in front of a jury. We've got the audience there. People have bought a ticket to come and see. And they're, members of the public, and, they've got every right to decide for themselves what they're going to spend that money on, instead of having gatekeepers decide for them and dictate what they're allowed to see.
This is what I find difficult, Aaron, because I wouldn't like to go to a comedy show where there were racist, anti-Semitic, paedophilic content. Of course I wouldn't. But I find it hard to know who should be the arbiter when it comes to these things, as Leo says. Who draws the line? Who decides what we are able to view? Who decides what we are able to see at a comedy venue? It is pretty tricky.
It is tricky. And I think you're right to say, look, there are lots of comedians who I don't like or don't find funny or sort of disagreeable or just outright, sort of vulgar or, saying horrible things. I just don't go and watch it. It's a very simple thing. Nobody's enforcing you to go and watch or listen to anybody else. I think at the same time, look, obviously certain venues, they have the right to, to allow certain people to perform or not perform. That might be a business decision. It might be a political decision. It might be a personal decision. They might say, I've worked with this person in the past. They're a real pain in the backside. So I can understand why you reserve that right. But like I say, there should be a very high threshold to disqualifying somebody because of their political views. It should be very, very high.
The The problem, though, sorry to interrupt. The problem, though, Leo, is that there isn't a high threshold. Because we live in a world where a few accusations and complaints on social media ignite a Twitter mob, and venues, businesses, people, etc., are so scared of their own reputation being destroyed that they just want to wash their hands of whoever it is, and it doesn't matter who loses out as a result. So with this case, with Graham Linehan, I imagine this second venue that cancelled was just thought, oh, we can't be bothered with this. We don't want our reputation besmirched. Let's just get rid of him. So there's no one standing up to cancel culture, really, is there? Because everyone worries about their own reputation.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, the people doing all the cancellation, they insist that they're somehow marginalised voices. It's like, I wish I was so marginalised that I could just cancel whoever I want and force everybody to believe what I believe. It's creating a real sort of monoculture in comedy. And the Fringe, the whole ethos of the Fringe is it's supposed to be audiences and acts can take risks, and you can see, crazy stuff that you wouldn't see anywhere else. Now you wouldn't see anything that you wouldn't see in an advert for oven chips. There's the left have become the establishment, certainly in the arts at least.
But then the right also have, said they're going to boycott brands for various reasons, the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco. So the right are doing it too, or at least small c Conservatives. Thank you very much, Sadie. That's all we've got time for. Aaron Bastani there from Novara Media, and Leo Kearse, comedian and GB News presenter.